They watch for movement. They measure sound. They wait for the signal that tells them where the threat lives. Most people oblige, answering attack with attack, filling the air with explanations, defenses, and noise. It is an ancient reflex, older than reason. The need to be heard, the need to prove innocence, the need to reclaim control with sound. But in power, that reflex is the crack in the armor, because every word carries heat, and heat can be traced. You keep your hand still, you hold your voice, and the silence becomes a mirror they cannot bear to look into. Their mind turns inward, replaying every move, every risk, every lie they've told about you. They begin to wonder which part you know and which part you'll use. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Machiavelli warned, and you break the word before it's even spoken. The longer you say nothing, the more they talk. The more they talk, the more they bleed. And when the final collapse comes, no one can name the cause. No one can prove your hand. All they will remember is that you never once spoke. And that is how the grave is dug. Rule 1. Silence forces their imagination to work against them. They search for patterns, for movements, for signals they can chart and predict. In conflict, most minds seek confirmation, an expression, a tone, a sentence that tells them where the threat stands. Deprived of this, the human mind refuses stillness. It begins to fabricate the truth it cannot find. You let that machinery run, and the longer it runs, the louder it grinds. Silence in your hands is not retreat. It is the hand that turns the wheel of their paranoia. Every unanswered message, every delayed reaction becomes a question they cannot solve. It festers. It grows. They imagine you planning, calculating, waiting for the perfect angle of attack. They do not realize the attack is already underway. Inside their own head, Machiavelli understood this clearly. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. In silence, you feed only fear. You watch their posture shift. Their sentences grow uncertain. They repeat themselves, trying to confirm that their words landed, that they still have control. But you give them nothing, and nothing is the most dangerous gift you can give, because they will not fill it with comfort. They will fill it with their worst suspicions. They will double their efforts to read you. They will dissect your smallest movements, your breathing, your stillness, and find ghosts in all of them. And when the ghosts become too many to track, they will move recklessly just to force a reaction. That is when the collapse begins. Not with a confrontation, not with a victory speech, but with the enemy tearing themselves apart in the fog you left them to drown in. Rule 2. Withhold praise and recognition until it starves them. Silence is not simply the absence of sound. In social and political arenas, recognition functions as a vital currency, a form of sustenance for those who thrive on power and influence. Public praise is a drug, feeding ego, inflating presence. When that acknowledgement is withheld, the enemy suffers an invisible wound, one that gnaws at their identity and authority. Without leaving a trace of physical attack, this deprivation is subtle but devastating. It isolates them in plain sight, stripping away their perceived value before a watching audience. You know their type. They crave the spotlight like addicts chasing a high. Every compliment, every nod, every whispered endorsement is a hit. They chase relentlessly. Deprive them of that, and you expose a desperation that can never be satisfied. You become the cold void they can't fill. the silence that screams louder than any insult. You do not engage. You do not acknowledge. The enemy's name becomes a question left unasked. Machiavelli understood that to destroy without touching is to deny someone the stage they believe is theirs, and without a stage, their act collapses under its own weight. You watch as they try harder. Louder smiles, exaggerated gestures, clumsy attempts at relevance. They flood conversations with their presence, desperate to reclaim a place they no longer own. But you remain unmoved, the invisible judge who does not blink, does not respond. The room seems colder, their efforts more frantic. Their allies shift uneasily, sensing the erosion of power, but unable to pinpoint its source. You know the truth. This hunger will break them faster than any direct attack. The more they push for recognition, the more credibility they lose. Their noise becomes a signal of weakness, not strength. They sacrifice dignity for attention, and in doing so, they reveal the depths of their insecurity. Silence is no longer passive here. It is an active weapon. Consider how many battles are lost not by force, but by fading into irrelevance. A general who is forgotten no longer commands loyalty. A rival who is ignored no longer commands fear. You use silence as a scalpel, carving away at their influence piece by piece, until nothing remains but a hollow shell. There is a particular cruelty in this method. You never have to raise your voice, never have to draw a sword. Your enemy collapses under the weight of their own craving for validation. The absence of praise is more painful than any insult because it signals erasure. The final, unspoken verdict. Do not fall into the trap of acknowledging their existence, even to deny it. Every name you speak, every glance you give, every reaction you offer fuels their fire. Silence, instead, repositions you as the unchallengeable observer, untouchable and unknowable. You deny their relevance. And in denying relevance, you deny power. You understand that influence is a fragile illusion, maintained by constant attention. Remove that attention, and the illusion dissolves. They are left isolated, desperate, disoriented. Machiavelli's insight echoes here. The real wound comes not from attack, but from invisibility. You do not need to expose their flaws. Their hunger exposes them. Over time, their presence becomes a whisper, a question mark, a forgotten shadow. Those who once counted on their power drift away, unwilling to align with a fading force. Their allies become uncertain observers, hesitant to defend what no longer matters. You watch this unraveling with clinical detachment. When you withhold praise and recognition, you starve your enemy, not of food or force, but of the vital lifeblood of social influence. Starvation leads to desperation, desperation to recklessness, and recklessness to collapse. This is the law of silent destruction. The enemy brought down by absence rather than attack, by invisibility rather than confrontation. Master this, and you will learn that the deadliest blows leave no wounds. You destroy not with words, but with the emptiness between them, and silence, when wielded with precision, is the most ruthless weapon of all. Rule 3. Weaponize delays to bleed their momentum. In every confrontation, timing governs power more decisively than strength or speed. The one who dictates when and how to respond controls the battlefield's rhythm. Immediate reaction surrenders that control, handing initiative to the attacker. Delaying response, by contrast, fractures the enemy's certainty and forces their mind into a spiral of doubt. Stretching time becomes a weapon. A slow, invisible blade cutting away patience and resolve. This patient silence is the trap that exploits their desperation for clarity and action. You watch as they fidget, desperate to break the silence that surrounds them. Every unanswered message, every postponed meeting, every delayed word sends their mind racing. Questions multiply in their thoughts. Have you even seen their attack? Are you planning to strike back, or have you already dismissed them as irrelevant? That uncertainty is a toxin. It drains their confidence more effectively than any direct confrontation. Machiavelli noted rulers who wielded delay as a weapon watched their opponents rot from within, corroded by impatience and doubt. You are the master of this quiet decay. Their agitation is palpable. Their every move becomes erratic. Fingers twitch as they hover over their devices. Eyes flicker toward screens, waiting for your response. A response that never comes. Unable to gauge your position, they push harder, taking reckless steps in a desperate bid to force a reaction. These rash provocations reveal more than anger. They expose vulnerability. Impatience strips away their veneer of control, leaving them open and predictable. While they stumble forward blindly, you remain still, patient, unmoved, waiting for their collapse. Born from their own chaos, you wield silence, not as emptiness, but as command over time itself. This delay is a calculated act, a movement in itself. One that arrives when their defenses have thinned, stretched thin by waiting. The longer they wait, the more their mental energy bleeds away, and the clearer their weakness becomes. Time is your ally, draining their strength while you conserve your own. Your restraint is a psychological vice. Each moment you withhold response tightens their grip of doubt and anxiety. The enemy, once confident, becomes trapped in an invisible cage of uncertainty. This lack of closure is unbearable. It forces them to fill the silence with frantic guesses, overreactions, and mistakes. You don't just hold back words. You manipulate the very flow of their perception. Your silence is surgical. It shapes reality by controlling the tempo of engagement, forcing your enemy to react on your terms, not theirs. You force them to lose control of the narrative, disrupting their momentum without ever needing to confront directly. In the shadows of your delay, they are consumed by fear and impatience, unraveling themselves with every wasted moment. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. Your silence distorts appearances. It turns your enemy's own mind against them, creating a phantom presence far more dangerous than any visible threat. Their fears grow unchecked, their assumptions spiral out of control, and their confidence crumbles before a single word escapes your lips. Master the art of weaponized delay, and you wield a power invisible to all but the most perceptive. Silence ceases to be absence and becomes dominance over time, thought, and action. A delayed move is still a move, often the deadliest, because it arrives precisely when your enemy's defenses have eroded through their own impatience. You do not rush because you do not need to. You know that the greatest victories come not from immediate strikes, but from silent attrition, from letting your enemy destroy themselves by wasting energy on shadows and doubts. Patience is the coldest weapon of all, relentless, inevitable, and utterly devastating. Rule 4. Let others speak in your place. In power struggles, direct confrontation is rarely the most effective path. The desire to attack openly is a trap. It reveals the attacker's hand and invites retaliation. Instead, indirect influence wields far greater control. When others voice your insinuations, your doubts, your accusations, your enemy is forced into silence, unable to respond without exposing vulnerabilities or secret knowledge. This diffusion of attack fractures their defense and amplifies your control without a single word spoken. You thrive in the shadows, the unseen architect behind the whispers. Every carefully placed hint, every subtle suggestion you seed through others, spreads like wildfire. No source to track, no signature to expose. The enemy's world begins to fracture around rumors they cannot confront directly. They become prisoners of their own restraint, knowing that any overt rebuttal would confirm the existence of conversations meant to remain hidden. Machiavelli praised this indirect warfare, the strike that leaves no trace, because the most deadly blade is one never seen. You watch as your enemy's facade cracks under the weight of shadows, cast by voices that are not yours, but serve your purpose. Their allies hesitate, unsure whether to defend or withdraw. Your name remains unspoken, but your influence saturates every whispered doubt, every sidelong glance. You never confirm, never deny, never engage. This silence itself is a weapon sharper than any accusation. Feel the satisfaction as they scramble to identify the source, wasting precious energy in futile hunts. Their attempts to uncover you only deepen their isolation and erode their image. The uncertainty breeds paranoia, turning allies into skeptics and skeptics into enemies. Their reputation unravels thread by thread, woven silently by your invisible hand. You understand that power lies not in open battle, but in the quiet manipulation of perception. The enemy's destruction begins the moment others start speaking in your place. When voices rise against them without a visible instigator, their world collapses from within. A silent storm, fueled by your control over the unseen. Master this art, and you command the battlefield of influence without ever stepping into the light. Your victory is total because it leaves no enemy standing, and no one knows who delivered the final blow. Rule 5. Turn their allies into uncertain observers. Enemies draw their greatest strength from alliances, from the unspoken bond of loyalty that shields them. Yet loyalty is fragile, less built on certainty than on belief. Belief in shared purpose, mutual trust, and unshakable support. When doubt enters, it spreads silently and invisibly like a poison, weakening ties without open conflict. The fracture begins not with accusation or confrontation, but with hesitation, a subtle pause, a withheld praise, a look that speaks volumes while words remain absent. This silence is your weapon to destabilize alliances, and through them, dismantle your enemy's foundation. Watch closely how humans listen not just to what is said, but to what remains unsaid. They are wired to fill the gaps with assumptions, to suspect hidden truths behind every silence. When you respond with calculated quietude, deliberate refusal to affirm loyalty to your enemy, you ignite the spark of suspicion in their closest allies. That hesitation becomes a seed planted in fertile ground. Allies begin to wonder what you know that they do not, what dangers loom in shadows they cannot see. The silence surrounding your attitude toward their friend is louder than any accusation. Machiavelli's insight guides you here. Alliances are not shattered by loud betrayals, but by quiet doubts that erode trust over time. Feel the power as their once unwavering allies become uncertain observers. Their confidence falters. In conversations, you notice their voices dipping when their friend's name arises. Eyes flicker away, smiles become thin and unsure. They hesitate to defend what once required no defense. Behind closed doors, Conversations shift, no longer about strategies or victories, but whispered questions about loyalty and hidden intentions. They analyze every interaction with you, looking for signs. A silence here, a subtle withdrawal there. Anything to confirm their growing unease. This transformation is invisible but devastating. The ally who once stood as a shield grows distant, unsure whether to stand or fall away. That hesitation fractures the solidarity your enemy counted on. You do not confront their allies directly, because direct confrontation reveals your hand and rallies loyalty. Instead, your silence becomes the whisper that fractures the group from within, poisoning relationships without a trace. Their enemy senses the isolation creeping in before words confirm it. They try to compensate with louder affirmations of loyalty, desperate gestures to prove the circle is intact. But desperation only magnifies doubt for those who watch closely. The overzealous defense, the repeated proclamations, the need to prove themselves, all betray insecurity. This is the turning point. The camp that once appeared united now looks fractured and fragile. And all it took was your calculated absence of affirmation. You know the truth. Power lies not in confrontation, but in the manipulation of perception. The moment doubt spreads, the enemy's strength dissolves. Allies who hesitate do not fight. Uncertain observers become silent witnesses to decline. Your enemy is trapped between the collapsing loyalty of friends and the relentless advance of your quiet assault. Master this rule, and you become a master of social decay, destroying enemies without swords, without words, only with a silence that turns allies into bystanders. The most lethal fractures are the ones no one hears breaking. Rule 6. Never let them see you bleed. Reactions are the currency your enemies seek when they attack. Every flinch, every flicker of anger, fear, or pain is their proof that their strike has landed. Without these signs, their assault becomes meaningless. A shot fired into the void. Absolute silence, void of any emotional trace, is the greatest weapon you can wield. It deprives them of feedback, leaving them trapped in uncertainty, desperate to know if they succeeded or failed. This uncertainty eats away at their confidence far more efficiently than any visible wound. You must understand this dark economy of power. Pain, anger, and fear are the valuable tokens your enemy trades in. Each reaction from you is a reward handed directly into their hands. When you deny them these tokens, you bankrupt them. They flounder, grasping for something to validate their efforts, while their minds spiral into doubt and confusion. Machiavelli once said that rulers must hide injury, for the illusion of invincibility often carries more weight than actual strength. Your silence in these moments acts as impenetrable armor, shielding you while you collect your thoughts, rebuild your strategy, and prepare your next move. The instinct to defend yourself, to justify, to explain, is a weakness you must master overcoming. Every word spoken in defense is a chink in your armor, an opening your enemy will exploit. Instead, you embrace silence, swallowing the attack whole, refusing to give any indication of damage. Your enemy's satisfaction is stolen from them, replaced by growing frustration. They cannot tell if their blow failed, or if they merely awakened a force they do not yet understand. This shadowy uncertainty is a weapon more lethal than any visible wound. Watch how their confidence wavers when denied the spectacle of your pain. Their attacks become frantic, erratic, fueled by their need for confirmation. They seek validation in your reaction, and when none comes, they are exposed. Naked to their own insecurities, your silence is not passive. It is a calculated and ruthless tactic designed to drain their strength, forcing them to expend energy on guessing games instead of real strategy. Time becomes your ally as your silence stretches. You do not rush to respond because urgency is a signal of weakness. Instead, you cultivate patience, a cold and relentless force that your enemy cannot penetrate. They attack, hoping to provoke, but you remain a stoic fortress, unmoved and impenetrable amidst the chaos. Machiavelli's insight that perception of invincibility is often more powerful than actual strength becomes your guiding principle. You embody the unbreakable presence, a phantom fortress that your enemy cannot breach or even locate. Your silence allows you to regroup and plan your counterattack with precision. Every moment you withhold reaction is a calculated step in a larger strategy. You do not answer on their timeline. You strike on yours. You are not a reactive pawn, but the cold hand that controls the board. Your enemy wastes their energy attacking shadows while you prepare the decisive move. In this mastery of concealment, your silence is your fortress. It hides the wounds, hides the plans, hides the power that is quietly growing beneath the surface. The world sees calm, but beneath that calm lies a storm. Patient, gathering, unstoppable. Your enemy bleeds from your silence, starving for evidence that their strike mattered, but always finding nothing. Train yourself until this instinct is automatic. In moments of attack, words betray you. Your silence becomes your strongest reply, an invisible barrier that no force can penetrate. Your enemy is left to crumble under their own frustration, stripped of victory because they cannot measure their impact. The most dangerous wounds are those that leave no scar, and the most powerful weapon is the quiet resilience that never breaks. Final rule: the grave without a marker. True power lies in the victory no one sees coming. The greatest conquest is the one that leaves no trace, no scandal, no public spectacle. It is a grave without a marker. An enemy erased from influence, destroyed by forces unseen and unnamed. This is the apex of silent warfare, triumph so complete that no one dares, or even knows, to assign blame. This final stage is not accidental. It is the calculated outcome of every silent tactic wielded before. You stand behind the curtain, orchestrating collapse without a word spoken. Every silence you maintained, every delayed response, every shadow cast by others speaking your truths, every fracture sown among allies, all have led here. Your enemy is not shattered by your open attack, but by their own unraveling. Caught in a web of uncertainty and isolation, you wove invisibly. They fight ghosts conjured by your silence, bleed loyalty drained by doubt, and lose relevance while you remain a phantom, untouched and untraceable. Consider how visible victories invite revenge, how a public strike brands the wielder a target for retaliation. Machiavelli understood this clearly. The most dangerous conquests are those that leave no trail. Invisible victories are immune to reprisal because no one can name the assassin. You become the shadow behind the fall, the silent force that manipulates fate itself. Your enemy's destruction appears to be the product of circumstance, rumor, and self-inflicted error. The world assumes their downfall was inevitable, a natural decay rather than a calculated execution. Feel the chilling satisfaction as the war concludes without a single shot fired in your name. No battle cries herald your success. No enemies line up to expose you. The enemy fades quietly, their power dissolving like smoke. There is no scandal, no confrontation, only the absence of influence. Where once there was threat, you remain silent and untouched. A ghost walking through the ruins of your unseen victory, your silence. Here is not emptiness, but mastery, the final stroke of a masterpiece painted in shadows. The greatest weapon is the one that cannot be identified, the victory that cannot be contested. This is the grave without a marker, the perfect erasure of your enemy's existence. They vanish, and no one knows by whose hand. You hold the ultimate power, to destroy without exposure, to dominate without declaration. This is your final lesson. The art of silent destruction is not merely to win, but to win unseen, to wield silence not as a shield or a tactic, but as the very architecture of your conquest. When you master this, you become untouchable, beyond reproach, beyond retaliation, beyond awareness. The battlefield becomes a quiet graveyard of those who never realized their enemy was already dead.